Um, but okay. I immediately start recording and then I start dying. This is how it's gonna go today, isn't it? Anyway, this is the second episode I'm recording today, and I'm gonna cut the jamble short. Uh, Black cats are bad luck, and so are you, kid, by Holly. This is chapter 14. His teacher waited until the class stopped talking to speak himself. Their silence quickened by his glare. He sighed and pat the top of the carrier gently, which made Izuku break the staring contest with the red eyes that normally sat in front of him. As you all know, Midoriya went missing during the fight last week. He has been found, but he doesn't look like himself at the moment. Do not try to overwhelm him, and do not touch him unless he says it's okay. The man waited a moment and reached down to unlock the carrier, opening the door. He took a deep breath and carefully patted out. Small gasps sounded around the room. He sat down on the podium, and his teacher set the carrier on the floor to have more room. Midoriya will be participating in class with us, but he will not be joining us in training or outside this classroom. You can ask your questions now, as you wouldn't be able to do anything until your questions are answered anyway. The entire room had their hands raised, and Izuku flicked his tail nervously. Izuku went down the rows. How did this happen? A villain turned him into a cat for 16 days. Half the class set their hands down. He chose the next person in the row with their hands still up. Are you sure that's him? Izuku sighed and picked Izuku up and spoke to him. Izuku, wanna wave? Izuku nodded and waved with his paw. The entire class gaped with awe. His teacher set him down again and pointed at the next person. Where's he staying? With me until he returns to normal. Then Koda raised his hand. Azawa pointed at him, and the boy meekly whimpered something not even Izuku could hear. The man gestured for him to speak up, and the boy shakily spoke up, just enough to be heard. Can't can I try to talk to him? Izuku perked up. He had forgotten about Koda's quirk in his recent crisis, and he stood and waved his tail happily. The man behind him shrugged and gestured for the boy to come forward. So Koda stood on shaky legs and walked to the front of the class and kneeled in front of Izuku and spoke quietly. Hello, Izuku? Izuku meowed back at him. Meow! Hello, Koda. The boy scrunched his face up. Izawa looked down at him and tilted his head. What's wrong, Koda? The boy looked up to the man, and Izuku continued to watch him. The boy spoke to their teacher. It's all jarbled. I kinda know what he's saying, but I can't understand him like I would other animals. I'm sorry. The man walked over and pat the boy's back reassuringly. It's alright, Koda. Thank you for trying. The boy went to sit back down, and the man picked Izuku up and brought him over to his desk, setting him onto it. He will sit here. Do not touch him unless he says so. Says okay. Back off if he asks, and don't pick him up. The man walked away, but not before setting a hand on the shoulder of the boy that sat in front of him. And do not be starting fights with cats. The boy glared up at the man, and the man just stared back with a tired glare. The boy finally relented and nodded. The man releasing his shoulder and clambering into his sleeping bag and flopping sideways on the floor and going to sleep. As soon as he did, he was surrounded by all the girls who were cooing over him. They reached their hands out to silently ask if they could pet him, and Izuku nodded slowly, which was something he would come to regret, as they all began patting him, and they all smelled of different perfumes and odors. He choked on the fumes as he pushed and petted by the enthusiastic girls, who were flooding his senses with coos and adoration. He meowed uncomfortably. Meow, meow, meow. and the girls relented their assault slightly. Through their pets, though their pets did feel good, his senses were overwhelmed. They backed up and let someone else through, who Izuku registered as Ida, who was separating the girls from Izuku. Loudly, but he got a break from being grabbed at. He shook himself off and looked around. He saw the entire class watching him, besides for Bakugo, who was grumpily moving away from the crowd that surged around him, and Mineta, who was too short to see anything. Asuka stood and waved his tail in the air as a hello, greeting his class with a more happy meow. Meow! Meow! Hello, everyone! All the girls cooed at the noise, and Izuku saw Ida visibly flinch at the unexpected sound. The girls made way for some of the guys, Kirishima, Sero, and Kaminari, all coming forward to pet him. They were also smelly and loud, but there were less of them. Though Kirishima was yelling at Kaminari, was yelling and Kaminari was excited, and the electricity from his quirk was making his fur stand on end. It was uncomfortable, and Izuku kept reaching back to try and get the fur to stop sticking up. He eventually got shocked by his fur, and he was yelped before falling backwards and landing on his butt. The entire class softly laughing, and Kaminari apologizing quickly. Izuku shook himself off and pat the boy's hand with one of his paws to comfort him, which made the girls croon again. They stepped aside and saw Todoroki step forward. He walked towards the boy immediately, waving his tail and meowing at him. The split-haired boy looked a bit taken aback by his actions, but slowly reached a hand forward to pet Izuku. Izuku rubbed his face on the other hand, but when his whiskers touched the boy, they frosted over. He sneezed and shook himself off, which made the entire class croon. The boy reached for Izuku with his left hand, and it felt so nice. The warmth that radiated from this side made Izuku rub his full body on the other. He ignored the class's call now and purred into the boy's arm. Izuku looked up to see the boy smiling, the temperature cooling down as the boy calmed. So Izuku touched his nose to the other boy's arm, which made the boy smile just a bit more. The split-haired boy rubbed Izuku's head and backed up to let others in the class step forward. The rest of the class stepped forward, and one at a time now, which helped Izuku immensely. Even the girls came forward again, Araka a little hesitantly, just as she had been before, though Izuku didn't notice. The last member of the class to come forward was a familiar ash blonde, who glared down at the boy. Izuku gulped and flicked his tail nervously, though the blonde just huffed and shoved people who were standing by his desk away before sitting at his desk and putting his head down. Zuko flicked his tail nervously and looked back at the people around the room, who were also a bit nervous. Though before anyone could acknowledge what had happened, the bell rang, and Mr. Ozawa left the room, making room for their first class, History of the Arts with Miss Midnight. Okay. That's the end of this chapter, but I want to read this note. Also, I'm not reading the full note. I'm just reading this one part. Also, I want to make Endeavor afraid of black cats, but Todoroki brings Izuku over one night, and Endeavor can't kick this cat out because it's a kid. So he's just like, smiley face. I think that's funny. Yeah, definitely. That would be hilarious. Even as like a spin-off one shot. I don't actually remember in the timeline where this fic is. It's after the Shisekai raid because Eri is there. Um, but I don't know how long after. I also this ain't explicitly said, but it's highly implied that I think Mirio's family took Eri because Mirio keeps bringing Eri to Azawa's place. and Mario watches Ari a lot. So I think that's kind of what's happened, unless she's a ward of UA. That's just a theory, though. I'm not sure about that. Anyway, I should stop rambling and get on to the next one. Yes, I did do the cover art based off of Denki petting Izuku and him licking it and just kind of being all messed up fur-wise. Fur does some funny things when interacting with electricity. If you have a cat and your cat's chill, you could try to rub a balloon on their fur and you'll notice how it behaves. Or you could just rub it on your own head. You'll get the same effect, except with longer hair. Anyway, that's it for now. Bye!